invited to a whole load of pirate-themed birthday parties. And the question to the parent is, what's he going to wear? Well, for the first of the parties, no problem at all. The usual pirate trousers, the shirt, the eye patch, and so on. But by the time we got to the 5th or 6th of these parties, you can imagine it's great fun having me as your dad, right? I was like, let's send him along with an AK-47 and an inflatable boat. Or just in his normal clothes with a plastic bag full of knockoff DVDs. Because the invite just says pirates, right? Pirates, like everyone in these tough economic times, have had to diversify. So rather than sticking with the traditional 18th century ship raiding business, pirates have, now found in internet piracy, pirate radio, and software piracy. And pirates have been slapping their Jolly Roger logo onto absolutely everything. Baby booties, executive ties, feeding bottles, cufflinks, comforters, and yes, even pirate underpants. So, who are pirates, and why are they so popular? I mean, are they just the cuddly protagonists of children's books? Or are they violent thieves trying to overthrow industry? And if they are, why do we dress our children up to imitate them? Because my son never got invited to any aggravated robbery parties. So what I want to try to do is to try and link together some of these different ideas of piracy. And what I want to propose is that wherever we see pirates, we see a system in some kind of trouble. Whether it be in economics, politics, spirituality, culture, or the arts, pirates send us a signal that something that should be held in the hands of common people has been taken away. Now, if we look back in history, the golden age of piracy, the early 1700s, what we see is England, Spain, France, and Holland doing all they can to try and enclose the new world of the Americas into their empires. And at this time, we are right at the birth of the emerging global capitalism. The engine of this movement is the ship. The petrol in those engines are sailors. Like Blackbeard here, they are combustible characters, but exploding because of the huge pressures they were put under. Sailors were brutally treated, whipped, they were beaten, they were fed rotten food. Sailors at this time were rarely paid and regularly injured. One writer of the day commented that to be a sailor was to be caught in a machine from which there is no escape, bar incapacitation, desertion, or death. To be a sailor in the Navy was to be close to death. And the mark they used in the ship's log to show a sailor's death, the skull and crossed bones. You see, sailors turned to piracy because they were fed up of the brutal treatment they experienced at the hands of these captains. A sailor's life was going to be a short one. So if it was going to be short, why not make it a merry life? And when sailors turned to piracy, they lived a very different model of life at sea. Pirates could vote for their own officers. Pirates ate and drank well. Pirates were compensated from the common purse if they were injured. But most importantly, pirates shared equally among themselves the profits of their labours. You see, the common misconception is that pirates were just thieves. And what this misses is that everyone was thieving. The English Navy from the French from the Spanish from the Dutch, and all of them from the land. Very importantly, pirates were not hated because they stole. No. Pirates were hated for refusing to pass on what they stole to the king. Pirates were hated for presuming to be something more than scum. And that's what their Jolly Roger screams loud and clear. The brutal treatment, the dehumanising labour for no reward, we are dead to that. See, pirates come to us in an act of radical self-determination. To move to piracy is an act of emancipation, stepping out from under oppression. And that is why we dress our children up as pirates, to give them a taste of this freedom that we should all be thinking of. Now, those pirates of the 18th century tell us something important about piracy in general, which is this, that whenever the resources of the many are enclosed for the benefit of the few, pirates will rise up, break that down, and put riches back into the hands of common people. Now, in a cultural sense, we see this in the 1950s in the BBC. The BBC enjoyed a complete monopoly on broadcasting, but would only play an hour or so of pop music each week. And into this enclosed system, what do we find? Pirates. A pirate radio station, Radio Caroline, comes along and it gives the music of the people back to the people. We see the same thing happening with a character called Henry Hill, the book pirate, who in 1706 began producing cheap editions of popular texts at a price that common people could afford. And the government prince of the day, who had a monopoly, were furious about this and would smash up his presses regularly and smash him up. But Hill was determined. He was committed to opening up the wealth of knowledge for all, which is why each of his books was headed with these words, for the benefit of the poor. He was called a pirate for fighting to break open elitist privilege and giving everyone access to information. Now, his cause was taken up by another printer on the other side of the world, by a man who would go on to create a whole nation out of this principle of radical sharing. By ignoring British copyright law, the founding father, Benjamin Franklin, was able to brag that easy access to books has made common American tradesmen more intelligent than aristocrats from other countries. And for that, America became known as the original pirate nation. Now, their first copyright law was a radical piece of legislation which was called an Act for the Encouragement of Learning. How can copyright encourage learning? Well, very simply. Any new invention or innovation, the inventor is given a period of protected trading, a time where their trading is protected so they can recoup their investment. But this time of what we might call private compensation is followed in law, after a short time, by an opening up, by a period of public benefit, so that all can look at this new invention, learn from it, and build on it. And it's this sense that has almost totally collapsed. Everything in our economy is skewed just towards private gain. And this is why pirates have been exploding and coming back up. You see, we are foolish to demonise pirates. Because what pirates signal to us is that something that should be held in common has been enclosed for private gain. And we live in such a privatised world. We drive around in our private cars and mow our private lawns in an economy rigged for private gain. But has this made us happier or more free? There is an ancient English practice of beating the bounds. Around this time each year, the people of the parish would march around the commons, the land they worked together, and trample down any fences that had been erected to take the land into private use. Now, the commons was where the community had shared rights. It's where the people literally planted and grew together. In the words of one writer, the commons was the theatre within which the life of the community was enacted. And in the 1600s and 1700s, as the land enclosure movement accelerated, this act of beating the bounds became an explosively political act. And with the levellers, we see beating the bounds become an act of piracy. Pirates are emerging again today because this stage upon which our communities can act has again become so narrowed as the spaces we should enjoy together are enclosed again into private use. We are living the questions today. And a question I want to leave you with is this. What can you do to enlarge that stage again? What can you do to turn the agenda away from purely private gain back towards public benefit? Now, the research tells us quite clearly, societies that do that, societies that share more, that have a wider sense of the commons, are better places to live for everyone. But the stakes are far higher than that. See, if we're going to live in a global village, then we need to have a global sense of the commons as a place that we need to defend together. We need to beat the bounds again. We need to be doing virtuous acts of piracy to defend the commons and swing the agenda away from pure private benefit, pure private gain, back towards public benefit. There are wonderful companies doing just this. Innovating, yes. Making money, yes. But still actually deliberately enriching the commons as they do so. And isn't that what we see right here at TED? One thing you cannot pirate is a TED Talk. They are ideas worth sharing. And how are they shared? Under a Creative Commons license. And what does that create? Community, inspiration, and goodwill. In 1726, the notorious pirate William Fly was dragged onto the gallows to be hung for piracy. The authorities wanted it to be a very public execution because they wanted a very public act of repentance. But they hadn't gambled on Fly's resolve. Criticising the hangman, William Fly retied his own noose, put it around his own neck, and declared loudly that if the government would be rid of pirates, they should pay sailors better and stop captains using us barbarously and treating us like dogs. We need a new community of pirates, men and women committed to defending the commons and standing up to the excesses of enclosed wealth. So put down your iPads and put on your eye patches. Let us work to enlarge that stage of the commons upon which we must all play our parts. Thank you.